Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another Hot Toys Spider-Man PS5 figure unboxing and review video. Now today, we are finally taking a look at none other than the classic suit Spidey. I have been counting down the days ever since this guy was announced, because I have an inkling that this may potentially be my be-all and end-all Spidey. It is so classic, but also slightly modern at the same time. We'll touch on what I mean by that throughout the course of the video. Now, I got mine from toyswonderland.com. Link for that is, of course, in the description below. They have 12-month installment plans and an awesome reward system. What we are going to do now, though, is get the box laying flat in the light box and do the unboxing. Here, of course, we have the box art, and this is significantly larger than any of the other video game Spidey releases. We do have an image of Spidey on the front of the box. That is a rendering from the game, not the figure himself. And then on the side, a bunch more images from the game in this web style pattern. On the back, we do have all of the relevant legal information, and then if you do want to get a sneak preview of the figure inside, you can flip open the front cover to reveal him, and a quote that says, "Writing your memoirs, don't forget to add the hyphen between Spider and Man." That's, of course, a quote from the game. We're not necessarily here to dissect the box art, though. We're more here to get a look at Spidey himself. I cannot tell you how excited I've been to get this classic suit Spidey in hand. For me, this is the quintessential Spidey figure. Even though I haven't actually taken him out of the box yet, I can already tell that these colors are super vibrant. And yeah, he looks and feels exactly how I was expecting him to. My expectations have already been met. What we are going to do now, though, is get all of his accessories laid out in the light box and take a closer look at everything he comes with. Here we have most, but not all, of the parts and pieces. We do still have the diorama backdrop to look at, which we will do in the very next clip. Now, starting off with the display base first, it's the usual Hot Toys hexagonal style base, a glossy red classic suit shaped Spidey logo up on top, a bunch of sepia tone images of Spidey in the background, with this kind of rough texture printed onto the surface. You also have classic suit on the front. Now, there are a few attachments so that you can have Scorpion's tail connected to the display base when you're displaying it with the diorama backdrop. The first of which is this plastic piece that slots over this section right here. It has a threaded insert in the back that you will screw Scorpion's tail into. It's a very strong and sturdy connection. You also get two different styles of dynamic flight pole, and the first of which is this regular sized one. The second is actually an extension that you screw onto the normal one to create a far longer version. That is supposed to be used with the diorama backdrop wall, so you can have Spidey actually jumping over it. Trust me, you will need the extra height. You also get this waist clamp, which is spring-loaded, but do be careful. These tend to, over time, dig into Spidey's suit and potentially cause some damage. You also get the usual array of Spidey webs, some shorter ones, some longer ones, and then one meant for web swinging, and this one, which is my favorite. It's spooled up and it does just slot in between Spidey's hand to create a much more dynamic look. You also get this web funnel, which you can attach to any of the webs with the connection points on either side, so it looks like he is potentially capturing some baddies. You also get a cell phone with an image of Otto Octavius in the corner, and what I'm pretty sure is the design or the blueprints for his web shooters. Correct me if I'm wrong there, but at the very least we do have a printed screen, rather than that just being blank. Now, the biggest accessory here is, of course, the Scorpion tail. This thing is huge, and it is very well done. It is a rubbery piece with a wire on the inside. This potentially could be foreshadowing to how they're going to do Doc Ock's tentacles from No Way Home, but it's a very sturdy feeling piece. It is painted in this stunning green metallic, and then there are these highlighter yellow sections along the inside. Then up the top we do have the stinger itself. It can move back and forwards and swivel side to side. In fact, you can actually remove it if you don't want it there at all. Now the top section is done in a very fluoro green, and it is a little bit prickly, although it is softer, so I don't think you have to worry about spiking yourself on Scorpion's tail. You also get this. I am loving these super detailed paper accessories that we've been getting as of late. It's of course a Daily Bugle newspaper, and it is fully printed on every single page. You even have a featurette on Miles. I am absolutely enamored by this newspaper, and of course there is a Spidey image on the back cover. Who is the Spider-Man? And no hyphen, so Spidey will be pissed at that. One dog-walking citizen claims to know. Yeah, I'm sure you do. You also get a full array of Spidey eyes, the first of which are the fully wide open versions, which I think are my personal favourite. Then we have the slightly more squinted, and then lastly the fully squinted. Those can actually double up as an early appearance Spidey set of eyes perhaps. We'll see what they look like on the body a little bit later in the video. You also get an entire suite of Spidey hands, including, and I was hoping they were going to do this, the pointing fingers, so you can totally recreate the meme if that's something you want to do. Lastly, you get the web shooting hands, but with the same mechanism we've seen before from the MCU Spidey figures. You actually detach this palm section and replace it with the web shooting version. That means you can insert a web onto the inside, and it creates a very convincing look. What we are going to do now though is get Spidey himself out here and take a closer look. Here we have it, fully assembled, and it was super straightforward to do. You literally fold the main section into this corner arrangement, then you bring in the top piece, slot it into place, and then it magnetizes on the inside. Now it is made of a very sturdy cardstock, and it doesn't feel like there's a ton of flex, so I don't think you have any issues with this bowing or deforming over time. I'm pretty sure this is going to hold its shape. Now we may as well talk about the inside first. There is some very retro looking wallpaper printed onto the surface, as well as a PowerPoint. That's something they totally could have left out. It is just printed on there, it's not a 3D piece, but details matter, and I'm glad they decided to place that there. You also have two holes in the wall. You can have Scorpion's tail coming out of either one, and we will bring this piece out again. Don't worry, this isn't the last time you're going to see it, with Spidey and Scorpion's stinger to see what that all looks like together. You also have a broken window that's done in a translucent plastic. There is a ton of sculpted in cracking on the surface to simulate broken glass. That of course can be seen from either the inside or the outside. You have a 3D window sill piece that is just a stuck-on extra piece of cardstock on the surface, but there is a ton of texture that has been added over the top. And the same thing can be said for the brickwork. You can see how the light is picking up all of this texture. It's not sculpted in, it literally is just on the surface, but it's a very convincing look. You also have an air conditioning unit on one side that is completely flat, and then on the other, a bunch of graffiti. Scorpion's tag done in a nice vibrant green and pink, plus a little Easter egg, a throwback to Man Spider, and then down below, Scorpion NYC King. What we are going to do now though is get Spidey himself out here and take a closer look. Here we have him standing straight up and down in the light box, no crazy poses or accessories or anything like that, and hot damn, this guy looks awesome. I was not expecting to be as wowed as I am on first appearance. It kind of looks like he's not real, like it's a CGI rendering from the game. That's how accurate this figure is. Now, with them going as accurate as possible, that means there are going to be some drawbacks with articulation, and we'll get to that a little bit later on. But for the most part, I'm just in awe with how good the colors look, how good the musculature and the proportions look, and how well all of the different designers have captured the animated series look, plus added a slightly modern flair. Kudos to Hot Toys and the design team who were in charge of creating the classic suit in the first place for the PS4 game. Y'all have done amazing work. What we are going to do now though is take him off the rotating turntable, punch in and take a closer look at the details. Here we have him up close and personal, and y'all can already tell I am thoroughly enamored by this Spidey. He looks incredible. With that being said, he isn't 100% perfect. Let's start off with the head sculpt. I love the shape and size, it all fits in proportion to the body. You can make out Spidey's nose and a little bump out for his ears as well. But where it lets me down ever so slightly is in the raised web lines. They are far higher on the mask and on the hands as compared to the rest of the body, where it's kind of just a printed texture on the surface. I feel that if they were going to do the super raised web lines on the head and hands, they should have done it on the rest of the body, or vice versa, made the head completely flat and smooth, with the web lines just painted on. I'm not sure why there is such a stark difference between the two different looks. However, with that being said, they have color matched the red paint very well to the red suit, where one is a rubbery material and the other is sculpted plastic. This is a solid piece. I will also switch out the eyes a little bit later on to see what some alternate looks actually look like on the body. Now, to do that, it's very straightforward. You literally push on the corner and then you can wedge your fingernail in the front section to remove them. That will of course enable you to have the fully wide-eyed open look for Spidey, or experiment with other expressions. Now let's talk about the suit. The underlying body and all of the musculature is exactly the same as the advanced suit, meaning that it looks super accurate to the game. All of the muscle sections are a gel padding. That means they are a little bit squishy, and fingers crossed if you go crazy with your posing, they should bounce back and hopefully remove all of the creases. Now there is a lot of texture on the suit itself. The red sections do have this basketball-like appearance, and then the web lines are over the top of that. You do have a much smaller spider logo on the front, and then a far larger one on the back. It looks very classic, and yes, I know, this is the classic suit, so it's totally supposed to. Coming down to the belt, you do have a nice V-taper, which plays into the musculature of the waist, and then on the legs, we have something that I didn't really notice until recently. You do have some panel line details. They're a little bit glossy, so when the light hits them, they do stand out, but I don't think it necessarily ruins the look of the entire figure. The blue is still incredibly vibrant, and then there is a ton of texture on the surface as well. Before we get to the boots, let's talk about the hands. You can see there are some web shooters here, but you can remove them if you don't want them to be visible, but then you'll see a little bit more of the wrist pegs. I am totally fine with them being there. I think they complement the look very nicely, and if you line them up just right, they will continue the web lines from the forearm down to the hand itself. As you can see, it matches up quite well. Coming down to the boots, they are a nice, smooth, seamless look, and you do have some hidden toe articulation on the underside, which really, to be honest, I didn't even notice at first glance, but yes, you can totally see there is a seam line in that awesome sculpted in tread. But for some alternate eye options, we do have these much smaller ones which technically can work as an early appearance Spidey, or you can just say that he's squinting. Maybe he's mid-battle and he needs to concentrate, or his spider sense has been activated. Either way, they work quite nicely. Then of course we have the mid-sized ones. These might just be my favourite. Halfway between fully wide open and squinting, they add a little bit of personality, but do let me know which of the options are your favourite. Now this is something that I personally really wanted to see. This is of course the Lim Toys Peter Parker head sculpt based on the first version of Peter. He of course no longer looks this way. There was a whole bunch of controversy. They replaced the actor in the remastered version, but nevertheless he used to look like this. Now the head sculpt does sit up a little bit high on the neck, but for me, it's a total non-issue. I still really like the way this looks. You could of course swap out the neck peg for a slightly shorter one if that's something you wanted to do, but for me, yeah, I am very tempted to display him with this head sculpt in the collection. Just before we move on, I thought why not try out this Tom Holland head sculpt on the body, because at the end of No Way Home he gets a suit eerily similar to this one. It doesn't really work, and I didn't think it was going to. The body of the PS4 Spidey is a lot bigger and beefier than Tom Holland is, so it looks a little bit goofy. The head sculpt is slightly smaller, it sits high on the neck. This isn't something that I would ever entertain displaying in my collection, but for those who wanted to see it, well, here it is. Now, because there are so many suits in this game, I don't think one or two comparisons would be enough. So I thought, why not do something that I haven't done in a while and do some rapid-fire comparisons. Starting off with Spider-Man 2099, they're roughly the same height, give or take a few millimeters. The bodies, though, are completely different. 2099 is a lot slimmer, but he does still have a ton of muscle definition. Either way, yeah, I'm really liking how these two look standing together. Next up, here we have Scarlet Spider. Roughly the same height, completely different bodies. Scarlet Spider is a lot bigger and beefier and doesn't have all that rubberized muscle padding. The reds are completely different, and so too are the blues. But seeing as they are both so vibrant standing next to each other, I think it kinda works. Bringing out Negative Suit Spidey, this is one that we haven't really featured in a while, but he still looks really good. I love the black and white color scheme. They're on pretty much the exact same body, the proportions look great between both of them, but overall, two completely different looks. This one is actually rather surprising, at least to me. I was expecting the colours between Cyborg Spidey and Classic Suit to be the exact same. In fact, people were ranting and raving when Cyborg Spidey was announced that he was too similar to Classic Suit. But as you can see, the colours are vastly different. He is a lot darker in the blue and the red, plus he has all the battle damage, the big cyborg arm, the utility belt, and that little eyepiece. There are so many differences. Let's be honest, these two might be based off the same underlying body, but they look completely different. Next up, here we have Spider-Punk, one that is severely underrated. I still really like this release, but there are some similarities, specifically in the mask and the hands. They do both have the raised web lines and that red texture sculpted in, but other than that, they look completely different. They are on different bodies as well. Spider-Punk is using the Scarlet Spider body, so he's a little bit bigger and beefier, but then again, he is slightly shorter than Classic Spidey. This is another very interesting comparison. This is Spider Armor Mark IV. The same body, the same muscle padding as Advanced Suit, Negative Suit, and this guy, but the material is completely different. The suit that we saw at the end of No Way Home that I'm calling the iconic suit, thanks to my buddy Robert Meyer Burnett, kind of is a mashup between these two. I still really like the Spider Armor Mark IV, but the classic look and feel of the classic suit is kinda starting to win me over. Moving on to Iron Spider, this guy is a little bit slimmer and lankier thanks to having to have all of the armor on the upper torso, but nevertheless, they look great together. It's a super retro classic design on the left, still a comic inspired look on the right, but slightly more modernized. Here we have the shot I'm sure you've all been waiting for, the evolution of Peter Parker from the first game, starting off in chronological order with the classic suit, then ending up with the advanced suit, and finishing the game with the anti-ox suit. These three look great together. If you aren't a massive collector and you want to just have the game represented on your shelf, you could do far worse than picking up these three suits, because as I said, they look really good together. I am tempted to display them in this kind of format in vicinity to one another in my collection, but so far, at the very least, I'm very happy with all three of them. I've said it once and I'll say it again, if official companies that are distributing these Hot Toys figures are going to go ahead and try their best to copy YouTubers' formats for their unboxings, then I'm going to show you all something that they simply can't. Here we have the So-So Toys Dark Spider from the PS4 game, aka Spider-Man Noir, and even though he is on a slightly shorter body, this is a great figure. He still matches in very nicely with the rest of the lineup, so I'm super glad I picked him up. This is the shot that I personally was waiting for, and oh my gosh, this makes me so happy. We've got the Green Goblin from So-So Toys on the right with its super classic 90s inspired look, and now the classic suit Spidey to go along with him. I cannot wait to have these two together in the display. These two are a match made in heaven. So-So Toys, if you happen to watch this video, please give us more villains from the animated series in this semi-realistic style, because with this classic suit Spidey now being released, I'm sure they're going to look even better as we slowly build up our rogues gallery for Spidey. Now I know technically Miles wasn't wearing this suit when Peter was wearing classic suit, but still, if you want to have them displayed together, here's what they look like standing side by side. And lastly, because technically these two suits were in the game, here we have Tech Suit and Upgraded Suit. Now, because they are based on Tom Holland in the MCU, they're slightly shorter and slightly lankier. But nevertheless, if you wanted to display them together alongside Classic Suit, yep, it is canon, they were in the game, so it totally works. Just going over articulation. Now bear in mind this is my personal copy of the figure, so I'm gonna be a little bit more careful. I'm sure when you get yours in hand, you can push the joints slightly further than I am willing to go. Now, starting off with the head sculpt, it's on a ball joint at the base of the head and another at the base of the neck, but you are going to get most of your movement out of the first joint. Looking forward to there, looking back the full way, swivel and then pivot side to side. The arms will go up on super clicky ratchets to there, they will go forward and back, butterfly joint at the shoulder that also hinges up and down. You do have a swivel at the bicep, a double bend at the elbow that will go past 90, plus a regular 1/6 scale wrist peg. The torso does have multiple joints. There's one at the midsection and another at the waist, crunching forward to there, going back to there, swivel and then pivot side to side. The legs will go forward to about there on super clicky ratchets, going out to there, swivel at the upper thigh, a double bend at the knee that will go just past 90, ball joint down here for the ankle, plus toe articulation. Just going over the 3 cool and 3 annoying things. The first annoying thing is something we did discuss earlier, but I feel it's worth mentioning again. The head sculpt and the hands have some very prominent raised web lines, compared to the rest of the suit where it's far more flat. I think they should have dialed them back just a little. The second annoying thing is a total non-issue for most people, including myself, but I still thought I'd mention it. It's the panel lines. They are subtle enough, so at a distance they kind of blend in. They're not an eyesore, but it's the one thing that, in my opinion, stops this guy from being that pure classic 90s Spidey. The third annoying thing is absolutely a subjective one. It may not be true for you, but it's definitely something that I'm not a huge fan of. It's the print on the top of the display base. I like the Spidey logo, don't get me wrong, the high gloss looks awesome, but I'm not digging the weird sepia tone images in the background. I mean, we literally have an image of Spidey taking a selfie with a random civilian, and some of these images are actually blown out where the highlights are far too harsh. I think Hot Toys could have done something truly awesome and suitably classic for classic suit Spidey. The first cool thing unequivocally has to be the scorpion stinger and the diorama backdrop. From concept to construction, this thing is super well done. I love the print, I love the way it works, it attaches to the display base very simply by slotting it in place, and then we get the badass scorpion stinger that's fully articulated. This, in my opinion, is an absolute win. The second cool thing is that they have fixed the ankles. There isn't that weird, annoying bunching issue. I think that's down to the choice of material and the fact that they've added some padding on the inside of the suit. It makes for a very smooth, clean look to the boots, and I am all for it. The third cool thing, and I know it's not specific to this particular Spidey, but I love the swap out palm gimmick for the web shooting hands. It's super simple, super effective, you slot the web right in, and it creates a very convincing look. Just wrapping up on the Hot Toys classic suit Spidey. Now going into this, I was so excited. I've been waiting along with all of y'all for this guy to eventually be released. And now that I have him, can I say that that hype was warranted? For me, yes, it totally was. Although, with that being said, he isn't perfect. That is the word I want to use to describe him, but I can't, knowing full well there are a couple of things holding him back. Number one, the raised web lines on hands and head. They are still an issue. It's not ideal, but it's also not a deal breaker. It's something that I can get around. If you can't though, I totally understand. He also does have those panel lines on the suit, which I guess is more of a suit design critique than a figure design critique. And then the last one, which is probably going to be the biggest for most of you, is that the suit is made out of the rubbery material. This one, I think they could have made out of fabric and it still would have looked perfectly fine with the rubbery musculature underneath, but it would have moved and posed a lot better. And you would have been able to leave him in said poses without damaging the suit, which is a big thing for a lot of people. He also comes with that stunning diorama backdrop. I love the way it looks, but part of me is thinking it was included at the expense of other small game-specific trinkets, like the vulture jammer, like the camera, like the donut, like the pizza, like the coffee cup, like the Spider-Man plushie, the drones. There are so many smaller little bits and pieces that we've received with the other versions of Spidey, and you get none of that here. Again, it doesn't bother me, but it's totally something to be aware of. At the end of the day, this guy is now my favorite Spidey in the collection. I grew up in the 90s, maybe I'm biased. I loved watching Spider-Man the animated series, and this guy screams that, especially when you pair him up with the So-So Toys Green Goblin. Now, I got my classic suit Spidey from toyswonderland.com. Link for that is in the description below. they have 12-month installment plans and an awesome reward system. While you're down there, check out the link to 6 Scale Network, the Facebook group. Come along, chat figures, share photos of your collection, and of course, see what's coming up next on the channel. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next video.